A dead electric motor doesn't look like anything. It looks like garbage. That's exactly why nobody stopped a 16-year-old kid named Colton Marsh when he started hauling them out of the county landfills, scrap bin every Saturday morning for an entire summer. Let me tell you how this one started, because it starts with a dumpster. It was June of 2009 in a farming town called Pruitt Falls, Nebraska, population 2,300 on a good year, and the man who ran the landfill's scrap yard, a heavyset guy named Ronald Ox, who'd worked there for 22 years. Watch this kid climb over a fence with a hand truck and start loading burned-out irrigation pump motors into the bed of a bicycle trailer. Not once, every single week, rain or shine, before the sun was even fully up over the grain elevators. Those things are junk, Ronald told him the third time it happened. Windings are fried. Bearings are shot. You can't do anything with a dead motor except melt it down for scrap weight. I know, Colton said. That's the point. Ronald didn't understand that answer. Nobody did, not yet. He watched the kid pedal off down the gravel road, with 3 motors rattling in the trailer behind him, and he shook his head and went back to his coffee, the way you do when something doesn't make sense, but doesn't cost you anything either. Here's what you need to understand about Pruitt Falls before you understand what this kid built. It's irrigation country, center pivot sprinklers running on electric motors, grain drying fans running on electric motors, augers, elevators, cattle feed mixers, all of it electric, all of it dependent on motors that ran 18 hours a day during the growing season, and burned out with brutal, predictable regularity. And when a motor burned out, a farmer had exactly 2 choices. Buy a new one for $1,100 to $2,000 depending on horsepower, or send the old one out to a rewind shop in Grand Island, 90 miles away, and wait 2 to 3 weeks for it to come back rebuilt. 2 to 3 weeks doesn't sound like much until you're the guy whose center pivot stopped turning in the middle of July with corn tasseling in 95-degree heat and no rain in the forecast. In farm country, a stalled irrigation motor isn't an inconvenience. It's a countdown, and everybody who's ever farmed knows exactly what happens when that countdown runs out. Colton Marsh's father ran to 140 acres of alfalfa and irrigated corn on the edge of town, and Colton had grown up watching that exact nightmare happen twice, once when he was 11, once when he was 14, watching his father drive a burned-out pump motor to Grand Island in the bed of the truck and come home with his jaw tight, doing math on a napkin about what 3 weeks of stalled irrigation was going to cost the operation and yield. Colton remembered sitting at the kitchen table both times, saying nothing, just watching his father's pencil move across that napkin like it was writing a verdict. Nobody could appeal. So Colton did what quiet, obsessive kids do. He started reading. Not comic books, not video game forums. He found a 1968 electrical trade school manual on motor rewinding at a library book sale for $1, and he read it front to back for times, dog-earing the pages on winding patterns until the corners went soft and gray. Then he found a retired electrician to towns over named Walt Hedberg, who still had his old wire gauge charts and his coil winding jig sitting untouched in a shed, gathering dust since the day he'd retired. Walt, more out of boredom than belief, let the kid come sit in that shed on weekends and ask questions nobody his age had ever asked him. Questions about lamination stacks and slot fill and turn counts. That made the old man sit up a little straighter each time. By the time Colton was 16, he had a composition notebook full of copper wire gauge tables, insulation class ratings, winding turn counts for 12 different horsepower and voltage combinations, and a theory he'd worked out with the same stubborn arithmetic a farm kid uses on everything. A burned-out motor isn't garbage. The frame is fine. The shaft is fine. The bearings can be replaced for $11. The only thing actually dead is the copper winding inside it. And copper winding can be stripped out and rewound by hand for the cost of magnet wire and a Saturday afternoon. Instead of $1,100 and 3 weeks in Grand Island, that was the idea. And it should have stayed an idea, the way most 16-year-olds' ideas do. Except Colton didn't just write it down. He started dragging dead motors out of a scrap bin, one at a time, on a bicycle trailer. and nobody in Pruitt Falls had the faintest idea why he was doing it, including, for a while, his own family. His mother found out first, because she found the shed. It happened on a Sunday afternoon in July. She'd gone out to the old detached garage behind the house, the one that hadn't held a car since 1994, the one that was supposed to be storage for lawn furniture and Christmas decorations, looking for a folding table. And instead she found 11 dead motors lined up on shelves. Colton had built out of scrap 2x4s, a coil winding jig clamped to the workbench, spools of magnet wire in for different gauges hanging from nails he'd driven into the studs, and her son sitting on an overturned bucket with a soldering iron, rewinding a half-horsepower motor by hand, one careful turn at a time. Counting under his breath like he was praying, she didn't yell at him. She didn't ask a single question. She just stood in the doorway for a moment, taking in the smell of hot flux and old grease. And then she went and got his father, a man named Russ Marsh, who did not waste words and did not tolerate what he called half-finished projects, stood in the doorway of that garage for a long time, just looking. He picked up one of the finished motors. Colton had already rewound 3 of them successfully by that point, and turned it over in his hands, checking the winding, checking the shaft, checking the way a man checks something when he's trying not to show he's impressed. Does it run? Russ asked. Wire it to a battery and find out, Colton said. Russ found an old car battery in the corner, touched 2 leads to the motor terminals, and the shaft spun, clean, smooth, no hesitation, no burning smell, no smoke curling off the windings, no hitch in the bearing. Russ set it down on the bench. He didn't say anything for almost a full minute, and in that silence, Colton felt like the whole summer was being weighed on some invisible scale. Then Russ asked the question that actually mattered. How much did that cost you to fix? $6 in wire. Bearings were already good. I just cleaned and repacked them. And the dealer wants what? For a new one that size? $410. Plus tax. Russ looked at his son for a long moment. Then he did something Colton would remember for the rest of his life. He reached into his shirt pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper, a repair invoice from the Grand Island Rewind Shop, 11 days old, $630 for a motor half the size of the one sitting on the bench, and set it down next to the finished motor without a word. He didn't need to say anything. The 2 pieces of paper, side by side, said it for him. That was the moment this stopped being a hobby, but nobody outside that garage knew it yet. And what happened next? What happened when Colton walked into the farm supply store on Main Street with a rewound motor under his arm and asked to talk to the man who ran the parts counter, is the part of this story that Pruitt Falls still argues about to this day, because it's the part where the whole town found out at once, and not everyone believed it. The parts counter at Kessler Farm Supply was run by a man named Dale Kessler, no relation to the store's original owner, just a coincidence of names nobody ever bothered explaining. And Dale had worked that counter since 1990. He knew every farmer in 3 counties by first name. He knew what horsepower motor ran their pivots before they'd finished describing the problem. He had the specific, settled confidence of a man who has never once been surprised by anything a customer told him. And after 19 years, he wore that confidence the way other men wear a good hat. Colton walked in on a Thursday afternoon, in August, with the rewound half-horsepower motor sitting in a milk crate, and set it on the counter like he was laying down a hand of cards. I want to know if you'd sell these, Colton said. Rewound motors, half the price of new. I can do 1/4 horse up through 5 horse right now, and I'm working out the winding pattern for the bigger pivot motors this fall. Dale looked at the motor. He looked at the kid. And then he laughed, not cruelly, exactly, but with the specific, bottomless certainty of a man who has spent 2 decades being the expert in the room, and has never had a reason to doubt it. Son, a burned motor is scrap. That's not a repair. That's a fire hazard with a coat of paint on it. You rewind these things without a proper vacuum impregnation process, without megameter testing, and you're going to put one of these on somebody's pivot motor and burn their whole field down. I've seen professional shops with real equipment botch amateur rewinds and lose their insurance over it. You're doing this in a garage. There were 2 other men at the counter. Farmers Colton recognized from church, and they were smiling the way men smile when they've just watched someone confirm something they already believed about the world. One of them, a broad-shouldered man everybody called Big Terry, even chuckled and said something about kids these days watching too many videos on the internet. Colton didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice or get defensive. He set his notebook on the counter, opened to a page dense with numbers, and turned it so Dale could read it right side up. Insulation Class F magnet wire. Rated to 311 degrees Fahrenheit, he said. I bake every winding in my mother's oven at 250 for 4 hours before final assembly. That's the varnish cure cycle. It's in the manufacturer's spec sheet for the exact wire I'm using, and I can show you the sheet. I test every finished motor with a Megameter I bought off Walt Hedberg for $40, and I won't ship or install a motor that reads under 2 megohms to ground. I've got test results written down for all 14 motors I've rewound so far, and none of them have failed. Not one. Dale didn't laugh again. He looked at the numbers for a long moment, and the room got quiet in the specific way a room gets quiet when the person laughing realizes he might be the one who's wrong. Big Terry stopped smiling and leaned in a little to look at the notebook himself. I'm not asking you to sell them today, Colton said. I'm asking you to let one of your regular customers try one and tell you what happened. Dale didn't say yes, but he didn't say no either. He just told Colton to leave the notebook, and he'd think about it. 3 weeks later, one of the farmers who'd been laughing at that counter, Big Terry himself, in fact, whose real name was Terry Valmer, and whose younger brother Pete ran a pivot on the west side of town, came back in with a burned-out irrigation motor and, mostly out of curiosity and a little bit of stubbornness, drove out to the Marsh place instead of ordering new, just to see what all the fuss was about. That motor ran for 6 years without a single problem. Terry told his brother Pete, and Pete told 2 more farmers at the co-op the following spring. And by the next summer, Colton Marsh had a waiting list taped to the wall of that garage, written in his younger sister's neat handwriting because she'd appointed herself the bookkeeper. Without being asked, tracking every job, every cost, every dealer price for comparison in a second column she labeled, in her own careful print, what they would have paid. It wasn't all smooth going, though, and it's worth saying that plainly, because the story people like to talk about kids like Colton usually skips the part where it almost fell apart. In the fall of that first year, a 5-horsepower motor Colton rewound for a grain elevator operator failed after 11 days. Not catastrophically. Number fire, no danger. Just a winding that had shorted from a nick in the insulation he'd missed during assembly. Colton drove out that same afternoon, pulled the motor himself, rewound it for free overnight, working until nearly 2 in the morning under a single work light, and delivered it back before the elevator missed a single day of operation. He also, without being asked, wrote the man a full refund for the original job and added his name to a list he kept privately, jobs to double-check, patterns to inspect more carefully, mistakes he refused to let himself repeat. That failure taught him more than the first 14 successes combined, and it's the reason, he says now, that he never shipped an uninspected winding again for the rest of his career. By the summer he turned 18, Colton had rewound over 90 motors. He'd expanded from his mother's kitchen oven to a used industrial curing oven he bought for scrap price from a bankrupt sign shop in Grand Island, hauling it home on a borrowed flatbed trailer with his father driving and Walt Hedberg riding along, just to make sure they wired it up correctly. He'd taught himself vacuum impregnation from a technical manual and built the setup himself out of a modified paint sprayer and a shop vacuum. Because a real impregnation tank cost more than his truck was worth, he'd saved local farmers, by his sister's careful tally, just over $31,000 in replacement motor costs in 18 months, money that stayed in Pruitt Falls instead of leaving for a dealership to counties over. Dale Kessler, the man who'd laughed at him across that counter, became one of his best referral sources, not because he apologized outright, men like Dale rarely do, in exactly those words, but because 6 months after that first conversation, he started telling every farmer whose motor died in front of him, without being asked, go see the Marsh kid before you order new. Just go see him first. That was Dale's version of an apology, and everyone who knew him understood it as one, even if Dale himself never quite said the word. Colton Marsh runs a full rewind shop in Pruitt Falls today. It has a real vacuum impregnation tank now, not a modified paint sprayer. It has 3 employees, 2 of them farm kids he trained himself, because he says the only people who really understand why this matters are people who've watched a pivot sit dead in July with corn tasseling and no rain coming, people who've done the napkin math themselves and hated what it told them. The old detached garage is still standing behind his parents' house. His mother never did get her folding table storage back, and she stopped asking for it years ago, joking that she'd traded a garage for a business instead. There's a small shelf on the wall now with the very first motor he ever rewound, the half-horsepower one that started it all, sitting next to the composition notebook where a 16-year-old kid worked out wire gauges and cure temperatures because he refused to believe that dead and worthless were the same word. 2 summers ago, Colton's oldest, a 15-year-old named Josie, started dragging something new out to that same garage, not motors, but old solar panel controllers pulled from decommissioned systems, convinced there was a version of her father's story waiting inside them. Colton watched her from the doorway the same way his own father once watched him, arms crossed, saying nothing at first. He just picked one of the controllers up, turned it over in his hands, and asked her how much it would cost to fix. And that's really the whole story, isn't it? Somebody looks at a pile of things everyone else has already given up on and sees a beginning instead of an ending. Everybody laughs. And then, if the kid is stubborn enough and careful enough and right enough, the laughing stops, quietly, one saved motor at a time, and nobody ever bothers announcing it out loud. They just stop going to the parts counter for that particular problem, and they never quite explain why.